You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good evening, Tamara. How are you doing today?
Just getting ready for story of the day. Following one in to me. How was your day?
Yes. Well, you're just getting home from work. You've actually been home for work for maybe like 10 minutes, if that.
Long enough to roll one and make myself a tea. So here we are. Yep.
There you are. Exactly. Home from work and right at it again.
Yeah.
No rest.
No rest for the wicked, man. No rest for the wicked.
How was work today?
Seniors Day, so fairly busy all day.
Oh, yeah. Helping any seniors with their cannabis grows today?
Actually, I sold some Remos roots today for, starters for their cannabis. And yeah, the root stem, pretty much, like, I can't say enough good about it. So it seems to be the fastest moving product in the store these days because everybody's wanting to start their clones and stuff. So I'm pumping a lot of Remos stem starter out. And yeah, I did actually help a senior today wanting to know a little bit more about her cannabis. So yeah, I did.
Good. That's good. Did I know, being that you just got home from work, like literally, like we said 10 minutes ago, you haven't had a chance to see the video that I released today on the CBG TV network on our past guests?
I skimmed through the message on my break. Didn't get a chance to see it, but I'm excited to see what you've done.
All right, good, because I know that Cheryl and Haley seen it. I got a message from them just as we were going live, and they thanked me for it, and they loved it. So I'm happy that and that's just the first one. I plan on doing more of these. Take one of our shows and turn it into a patient story where we can highlight a patient and let everybody know how this patient is doing. Because as we all agree, patients telling their stories is one way of educating people.
Absolutely. And Haley's birthday was yesterday, and she turned 30 yesterday. And she's
30.
Our longest patient that we've had as a child. So she got her license when she was just about 15. I guess she was she was 15. So for 15 years, she's been using cannabis as a medicine, and it's actually keeping her alive. So we were able to actually source out. Cheryl was needing 20,000 seeds to be able to produce the alkaline sprouts that are needed for Haley's new alkaline keto diet. And we were able to source the seeds last week. So I'd like to shout out to Derek Kendall, who has stepped up to help Cheryl and Haley with those seeds.
Good stuff. Good. Yeah. That's fantastic news for her, because I know that she was looking for that. And Haley will continue and get her medicine. Haley's comment that was brought in by Dr. Hornby there. So,
well, any seeds that they need can be male seeds. It doesn't matter. These seeds are for a new alkali juicing diet kind of thing. But they found out if you sprout cannabis seeds and you let the seed grow like an alfalfa sprout, like how you get sprouts for your sandwiches and stuff. If you sprout them the same as you sprout a sprout, between 10 and 14 days of that sprout being active, that's the best time for the alkalinity in the cannabis to help her with her diet. So why we need the seeds, it's not to plant that many plants, but of course, Health Canada recognizes a plant as a plant as soon as it's got a leaf on it. So we need, of course, to get a licensing for 20,000 little sprouts a month, right? So there's a court case going to be coming up with that. But at this point, it's not that we need those 20,000 seeds a month so we can grow 20,000 plants. She needs those 20,000 so they can sprout them. So in between 10 and 14 days, Haley can eat those sprouts on a sandwich, in a salad, or whatever, and it helps her with her diet. It makes it so that she doesn't sneeze and helps her epilepsy.
Yeah, well, I seen that she posted. Cheryl posted a picture of Haley with something that she was going to have to eat, and then a glass with the juice in it.
Yeah. Well, they were given some leaf. So Cheryl's been able to juice almost 10 gallons of juice for Haley, which is not enough because her keto diet has got it so that her glucose level is higher than anybody else's, and her keto levels are higher than anybody else's. So anybody normal would not be able to live with the glucose and the keto levels that she is. But this is what's keeping her alive, is this keto diet, medical keto diet, and the fact that she's her glucose levels with her blood, and she's not diabetic.
Yeah.
They have to take her blood every hour, so her fingers are being poked every hour, just like a diabetic. It's just But cannabis, again, if it wasn't for cannabis medicine, Haley would not be with us. She does take some pharmacy. There's just
as Cheryl said to us, they sent her home and said, enjoy your Christmas with her, because this is the last one you're going to have, and 15 have passed since then.
Yeah, and that's 15 years ago. So, and Cheryl doesn't give up either. Like Cheryl's gets a testing, goes in sources. Like she goes well beyond and above for her child. She's not a child anymore.
All right.
She's a young woman.
No. She's 30 years old. I was blown away. So,
and with that being said, after she turned 18, that really stopped any extra benefits that they got for her. So now that she's an adult, she doesn't get all the child benefits, like the extra money and all that stuff that they need, right?
Right. Yeah. All right. What do you say? That's an update on Haley and more to come. But it's time to move on to our guest.
Yeah.
What do you say we bring him into the broadcast?
You betcha.
All right. I'd like to welcome someone who works hard and is always constantly educating people about cannabis. We'd like to welcome Dustin Hoxworth of Fat Nugs Magazine to the Pace Radio Show. Welcome, Dustin. How you doing?
Welcome.
Hi. Thanks, guys. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey. Good to see you. It's great to have you on the show. Great magazine, by the way. But get that right out of the way, right out there in the open. And
let's ask a question.
Bring it closer. Just bring it right up.
Is your magazine available in Canada, or is it one of those mail orders that have to do with high time?
Yeah, so basically we can do international ordering or international shipping. But unfortunately, because it's so expensive to ship anything these days, especially when it comes to international stuff, I have to have everyone that's outside of the U.S. actually pay for the shipping itself. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So you can absolutely order. And to be honest with you, the best way to order international is going through me personally. So sending an email or contacting me on LinkedIn or something along those lines is kind of how I've been dealing with the international stuff.
Right.
So that right there tells us that your magazine is available in print form as well as digital form.
Correct. We started out digital last year. The very first digital edition we released was May 6th of last year. I started building this thing early February, maybe late January of last year, early February. And it took me that long to actually be able to release the first edition, which was May 6th.
That's
May 6th. I kept thinking that it was people were talking about it, or it was passed around at the Kind summer fair last year in Toronto.
Awesome. I love it. And I'm a big fan of, so I'm actually a big fan of Kind. They have there's a few people over there that I'm connected to that I really enjoy talking to, hanging out with, Jordan Wagman being one of them. I don't know if you're familiar with Jordan or not, but he is an amazing James Beard nominated chef who cooks with cannabis.
Yes.
And he's a pretty amazing dude. So anyway, I like the folks over there at Kind.
Good. Yeah, and I believe that his name sounds awfully familiar to me. And I'm thinking whether he was at the Can Expo recently in Toronto as well, because they had a big cooking contest going on there.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know for sure, but I know that he actually lives in Canada. I don't know exactly where he lives in Canada, but I know he is based there.
Basically.
Yep.
Now, as far as the magazine goes, Fat Nugs, where'd you get the name?
Good question. I think it really comes from our stoner vernacular, right? That's a fat sack. That's a fat blunt. Those are fat buds. Those are fat nugs. That kind of stuff. That's really where it came from.
Yeah.
You're based out of the States, so you're in Atlanta, you said?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
So what goes down there? Like medical legalization, recreational legalization, any legalization?
Yeah, good question. So there is some legalization. It's supposed to be medical here in the state of Georgia, but let's be honest, there is no real grow, there is no real post-production, there is no distribution, no real retail, and good luck finding a doctor to actually give you a license for cannabis here in the state. I think it's medically viable, at least to the law, for about 12 or 14 different medical issues. So really, in essence, we don't have legalization here. I've seen a store or two, but there's, again, tell me who's growing it, where it's coming from, who's distributing it, you know what I mean? There's none of that information is readily available to any of us. You probably have to dive pretty deep. I don't know any of the people specifically that are involved with what's going on in the state. So really what's happening, and sorry to be long-winded, but what's really happening here is everyone here in the state is being sort of held hostage by our lawmakers working with very large corporate cannabis companies, businesses, right? So people like Trulieve. These are the companies that are coming in and they are lobbying and working with and helping to write laws and things that will basically hand over the entire market here in the state to a small handful of companies that operate in other states already and are very large corporate cannabis businesses, period. Yeah. It's unfortunate because, that's not what cannabis has ever been. Right. So
exactly.
It's unfortunate. So really people like myself or just about anybody else I know will be completely locked out of the market, just like they are in the state of Florida. So really, Tamara, to answer you directly, yes, we have medical cannabis here. No, it is not available. No, it is not easily attained. You'll find no information on it, and no one is talking about it or thinks it's a true viable thing in the state as of yet. It's being controlled by and manipulated by some very wealthy individuals who own very big businesses, and that's what we're doing here.
Wow. Holy smoke. So you only have it in theory by the sounds of it, in writing, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you have a medical program and not supply patients with medicine? Like we had that issue up here in Canada 20 years ago.
There's the legality of that. So say you're driving your car with cannabis in possession of it. How do you prove to the law you are medical? You've got no paperwork. So then you get with possession of cannabis, which is a controlled substance. And what are the laws like down there?
So luckily, I live in the city of Atlanta itself where it's decriminalized. So it's actually up to the discretion of the officer when they are either pulling you over or busting you with it. They can take you to jail if they want to, but you know what that involves, right? They have to do paperwork, blah, 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 and they don't want to. They don't want to waste their time. Plus, we have a very large minority population here in the city, and we were arresting people all the time for possession that we shouldn't be arresting, right? So I think the optics of that kind of control that situation at this point. So I don't really worry about it too much in the city that I'm in, which is the largest city here in the South anyway, Atlanta, Georgia. But as far as being pulled over with it, they would absolutely take your ass to jail in this state if you are not in the city of Atlanta. And I promise you, they would love to do that. We're in the South. We still brag about arresting people with weed in their cars, and we take their cars away and their home away and, you know, all of that and throw them in jail. We still do that kind of shit here.
Jesus.
It happened here too. Like, I mean, the laws were, and even with legalization here, if you get caught with large grow, you're selling to minors, you'll go away for 14 years too. We still have those large, if you're gonna fuck around, you're gonna find out kind of laws, right?
Sure.
But on average, people aren't getting busted for small amounts anymore. Like, there hasn't been I haven't heard of an arrest of anybody being busted with a,
So
the one report that was out there said 60,000 people weren't arrested.
Right, 60,000. I did 6 months house arrest for mailing 4 grams of marijuana in mail. So I feel for everybody that ever had to do any time, whether it's house arrest, incarceration, whatever, for any amount of cannabis. My husband sat in jail for 2 years a day for a grow back in the early 90s. So we've done our time for cannabis too. But again, like, if we're still able to get away with that outside of America, like, that's where the difference in states, because we can't do that here. You can't say, hey, in Calgary, Alberta, you don't get busted for this. It's just, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it makes our living situation here and working and living with cannabis and traveling with cannabis and all of that very odd, because, and we hear all the time about people driving from one state through another state to get somewhere else. They come from a legal state, they get pulled over, they get busted, they get thrown their ass in jail. And it's just the reality of what we're still dealing with. But really what we're starting to see now, and Tamara, you kind of touched on it, was kind of Prohibition 2.0, where it's really still not legal in the grand scheme of things. You have to fit within these rules, laws, and regulations that in most cases make zero sense, and they're created by lawmakers who have never been, connected to this plant in any way, so they don't understand what they're doing. And that's not only in Canada. I mean, hell, it's in every single state we see here. But really what the problem is, we knew the real issues of going to legalization when we did it in Colorado and California. And what really happened was that the other states that were going legal saw what was going on, and instead of learning to do better, they learned to continue to do shit and create these issues that then create all these other money points and situations and touch points that you have to pay and get busted and do these very specific things. And if you don't follow this rule, you're getting fined for that. Oh, and by the way, here's a bunch of fucking taxes on top of everything you already do. And so you get this 2.0 prohibition that is, it's not near, don't get me wrong, it's not nearly as bad as we've been throwing people in jail for 100 years here in this country for this stuff. And it's not anywhere near as bad as that at this point, and we're getting better. But when you immediately, kind of create the situation where legalization is turned into a tool to continue to fine people, to make money off of your citizens, to control them in certain ways, instead of just going, guess what? We're going to, unschedule this. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to tell you that you cannot grow in your own home, your own medicine, your own plants in your own home. And that's another big one, right? Home grow and caregiver rights. That's another thing we're constantly dealing with as well. So anyway, you're now dealing with all of these situations in all of these different states with all of these different laws. They choose not to learn anything because it's a way for them to continue to screw things up to make money, right? That's what bureaucracy does, and what red tape does. It creates layers.
Decriminalization, like that's why when they were saying, "Oh, decriminalize," I was like, "No, we need to legalize. We need to do it differently," because decriminalization just adds to the fining and bureaucracy and the court system and everything else. People are getting fines, and it's a money maker.
No supply, no source.
No, nothing. See,
Yeah.
the patient here, see, we were in a position where we've had a patient like MMAR since 2000. So the federal government was forced to let us grow our own. Well, the federal government that we had decided they weren't going to allow us to grow our own anymore. So they are the ones that brought in the MPR program, that brought into these great licensed producers, because these great big licensed producers, these huge corporate facilities, were going to have to supply and give access to all these patients in Canada. And the patients went, no, just no.
Yeah, why?
No.
Yeah. Why would we give up our right to grow?
Exactly.
For large companies to do it.
Right. So here we have now where patients are supposed to be allowed to have to access all these big corporate grows. And then we got the ACM care, but we also changed governments. We had a government that actually understood what legalization was to a point. And they're only go so far with certain things. But people are allowed to grow plants. But still, that's again a slap in the face. And Health Canada will allow to grow 5 for a gram, but the government will allow 4 for everybody else recreational, which isn't even a gram. So our government, federal, all the way, every province was then given their own jurisdiction. So it's the same. Every province has different laws. You can't grow in Quebec. You can't grow in Manitoba. You can't
tomorrow.
In certain
Friday.
provinces. What's Friday?
Friday is the announcement on the Quebec rights to grow their own cannabis. Even though cannabis is legal in Canada, 2 provinces don't allow people to grow their own cannabis. One of them is going to, the Supreme Court will be releasing their decision on the Quebec situation, which the Manitoba is following as well. So
fair enough.
But yeah, I want to switch back. I want to switch back to the magazine.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Real quick. This is actually a perfect kind of segue into the magazine. So, you talk about home grow. We have the same issue here, right? And I say there's a saying that I constantly, talk about, or something that I say over and over again at the magazine here, and that's it's not legal without home grow. It's not. It's simply not. You're forcing us into a funnel so that you can control what you want to control. Legalization, true legalization, means I can brew my beer at home. I can grow my weed at home. Not to compare the two, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And here's where we segue into the magazine, because in every single edition that we've released up until now, we have it's not legal without home grow. The first thing that you see in this edition is exactly that.
Oh, yes.
Kind of hard to see, but anyway, it's not legal without home grow. But anyway, that was kind of a perfect segue back into the magazine.
How are you able to grow your own in Georgia? Like, are you able to grow your own in Georgia?
Hell no.
So you got a lot of
Yeah, they would not allow. I mean, even with, I think, full legalization here, not just medical, they would probably do everything that they could to make sure that we couldn't home grow. And every reason behind that would be thrown at us, which is our neighbors don't want to smell it. You're going to have chemicals in your house, or you don't know what you're doing, so it's dangerous. That kind of stuff is what would be thrown at the population. And we all know it's a bunch of fucking bullshit.
Oh, we heard it.
Oh, yeah, we sure do.
That was thrown at us too, right? We had approved everything that they were trying to say. Like, they defunked even the police on these large grows with cold and all this stuff. Experts that defunked everything they said. Like, basically, so that court case, even now, if anybody wants to say that their house is moldy, just refer to the court case that proved that none of that's true, because it went through the BC Supreme Court, and all that stuff's in the transcript. So.
All right, let's get back to that magazine. Stop taking us over cannabis laws there, Tamara.
I'll tell you what, there's something that stoners can do, and we go on our stoner rants, and that's perfectly okay. Here are the last 2 editions. I don't know if you can see these or not, but those are the last 2 editions. The February edition was here, and obviously this is our 420 edition. So
I'm bringing you back in and making you a bigger picture there.
There you go.
There you go. Now, I noticed the one on your right, which is your latest one, which is the 420 edition, correct?
Yep, that it is.
Okay. You have it's got a big feature on the women of cannabis.
Yeah. So every edition so far, we've had what I've called the Women of Weed. And there's probably other people that have said that many, many times before me. So I know I'm not, recreating anything here. I'm not the creator of anything special on that one. But we feature women in cannabis a lot. There are several reasons for that. I don't need to dive into those. But yeah, we do a Women of Weed, and we did, I think, 14 different women, give them a double page layout. Tell a little bit about who they are, have their own regular picture, and then we recreated one in AI. We use a lot of AI art here. We use a lot of digital art. We have people that have actually done sketches and drawings for the magazine as well. We have real photography. We have AI photography. So we do a lot of different stuff when it comes to art. And so when we were featuring these women, we wanted to do something different. And it was all about featuring who they are, ask them a question as to, something along the lines of, what would you tell other women, or what advice would you give other women who are trying to get in the industry? So that was one thing we wanted to hear from them. So you get a little piece of who they are industry-wise, and then you get to learn about what they're doing on the other page along with their AI art. So we kind of put them into a little world that we thought, after learning a little bit about them, made sense. And so we tried to show some personality, just some different kinds of stuff, be pretty, really colorful, very visually stimulating, more or less. And I think that comes from nowadays, people have that 15 or really more like 6-7 second amount of time to really give you, right? People just don't like to pay attention anymore. So instead of I think it used to be 15 seconds or something, that now it's down to like 6 or 7. So I wanted something that would not overwhelm you text wise, but would give you something informational about each woman, but be very visually stimulating when you're looking at it. So that's what we went with.
That's awesome.
Good. It's always important.
Then are you gonna have a magazine monthly, or are they bi-monthly?
So I think you said, and Tamara, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think you said, when do we release these magazines? Every other month. So April, and then June, and then August, and then October. So every 2 months we release a new one.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah.
And that's a lot of work, by the way. A lot of people don't understand that most cannabis publications that have ever existed are quarterly publications. I like to do every other month because, first of all, there are a ton of things to talk about in this industry. There's a ton of news. There are amazing artists. There are fantastic writers. We have enough people in this industry doing enough amazing shit that we can absolutely build a magazine every single month. I just don't have the capacity to do that. But I have the capacity to do every other month. And I want to do that as much as I can. I think our industry deserves that. As a magazine that is really based on the community and culture side of things, I think we need to have that out there more, because as you've seen over the past 5 to 10 years, as legalization has really gotten, cranked up, it's dominated by corporate cannabis. So, and business stuff all the time. And some of our publications that I grew up with in the 80s, early 90s, when I had a High Times in my hands back then, I felt cool. I felt like I was like a cool dude, right? And you were a cool dude if you had a fucking High Times magazine. That may have changed a little bit, at least for me it has personally, and I won't speak for everyone else. But we are anti-big cannabis, anti-corporate cannabis. And not to say that corporate cannabis doesn't have a place, but the way that it's being operated now by many corporate cannabis companies that are, running a lot of the space here in the US, I'm sort of anti that. I spent a lot of time in corporate America before I got into the cannabis space, and I don't want anything to do with that, to be honest with you. So if I can keep cannabis small, or at least if I can keep uplifting voices from small mom and pop, equity, legacy, women, and veteran-owned cannabis businesses and their voices, if I can uplift those so that corporate cannabis doesn't dominate everything, and we have somewhat of a level playing field, so that you know that all of these small businesses, they need a place to go. They need their voice to be heard.
Sure do.
So
exactly.
there we go.
Yeah. You really, I'm just going to shift you around there again. Really sounds grassroots style magazine, and the culture and things.
Oh, absolutely.
It is time for us to take a break. All right. Off the break we go. When we return, Tamara and I will continue to talk with our guest, Dustin Hoxworth of Fat Nugs Magazine. This is the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Pace Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net. Hey, welcome back to the Pace Radio Show. We're live here tonight with our guest, Dustin Hoxworth of Fat Nugs Magazine. All right, we've talked about a bunch of different stuff in the first segment there. Now, what I want to ask you to get us going here in the second segment is what got you started with Fat Nug Magazine?
That's a good question. Before I jump into that, and I will, I just want to let you know that throughout that entire break, those commercials that I got to watch, I just had a big fat smile on my face, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I think it's because I just realized that I never get to see that on any kind of entertainment network at all, right? Any kind of TV show or Netflix or movie or anything that I'm watching, you never get to see cannabis media. You never get to see cannabis commercials and stuff. So I'm just sitting back here relaxing, and I was like, this is fucking cool. I enjoy this. So it made me realize it made me realize how much I appreciate what you both are doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for that. We appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's dope, dude. It is. It's actually really dope to see.
And I went through that experience back in 2008, 2009, because I was part of a segment in a radio broadcast where I spent 3 minutes as the reefer reporter talking about the news. And we got a commercial made for the segment, and it was by Treating Yourself magazine, which was a medical magazine. And the station at Belleville, Ontario, they asked me, how do we make a commercial for cannabis? They'd never done it before.
All right. So, I love it.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. It is. And I think what's really cool is that you're seeing this is the beginning stages of what we'll see, right? Yeah. So these kind of smaller budget commercials and things of that nature, eventually we're going to see $1 million ads, and they will be effective and they will be cool, and we'll see them on our regular shows that we watch and everything else. So anyway, I'm sorry to dive into that, but again, I definitely appreciate what you all are doing, and seeing the commercials and stuff during the break was really cool.
Good.
How I came up with Fat Nugs Magazine, or what made me create it. So that's sort of a loaded question. There's a lot that goes into that, and I'll try to make it brief. But it really goes back to, it starts back in my childhood. Growing up around the plant and having people in my family consume it on a daily basis, and me always thinking it was just normal. I didn't think it was anything crazy or whatever. Has everything to do with the magazine. Seeing it on a daily basis has everything to do with the magazine. Helping to pay for my college by running pounds. Look at your pup. Running pounds from Atlanta, Georgia down to Georgia Southern University has everything to do with why the magazine exists, and so on. And the 14 years that I spent in corporate America, always living that dual life, putting on a nice pair of pants and a button down and going to work, and hating everything about my day, including myself, so that I could come home and rip the bong at night. That has everything to do with the magazine itself. So last February or so, when I started to really create this thing, it came about just by me sitting on the couch and being stoned and wanting a creative release. I've always been a pretty creative person. I've written and released 3 albums on my own. I've been in bands. I do some painting, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always looking for some sort of creative dump, I guess you could say. And while sitting on my couch, I just started to create. And there were some things that led up to creating a magazine cover. But basically, I wanted a way to speak to my growing network and connections in a much more broad and fun sense. Because I don't know if you noticed this or not, but LinkedIn, which is where this magazine was really built. LinkedIn, I'll tell you about that. LinkedIn is very text heavy. And so when you're scrolling, you see a lot of white space. Mm-hmm. So by adding something that is visually stimulating, that is colorful, that makes you, as you're scrolling, stop for 1 second, right? I got that 6 or 7 seconds right then and there. So I have that opportunity to speak to you for just a few seconds through your eyes. And so I think I wanted to take advantage of that. And knowing that I've always been kind of, a visual person. It was just an easy way, I guess, to create something and start to create conversations around it. So after coming up with, our it's I hate to use that word, an elevated sort of stoner and cannabis culture visual stuff was what I was producing. And again, it was just a way for me to then put some titles or things to talk about, or I wanted to talk about on the magazine cover itself, and then post it. And I did that 3 or 4 times. And every single time I would post just the cover, because that's how this thing started. It was just a cover. It wasn't a magazine. I had no intentions at all. 0. Actually a magazine. And I've had this conversation so many times. One of the reasons I didn't want to turn it into a business was because I was having just fun with it. It was just fun. I sat around, I got stoned, I just started to create, and the things that I create made me smile. And I was like, this is cool. So I'm going to post it and let's talk about it. That's really where it came from. But by the 3rd one that I posted, just the 3rd one, I had a couple cannabis-focused media companies come to me and say, we would love to bring this in-house. And I was like, bring what in-house? This isn't a real magazine, dude. This doesn't exist. But a couple of conversations, and they quickly made me realize that, look, continue what you're doing. I also do some writing. I've written for 2, 3, 4 publications, something along those lines in the industry as well. So I understand sort of the process. But they made me realize that what I was doing was and could continue to fill a gap, an enormous gap that we have in the industry here in the States. And I can't speak for Canada totally because I'm not there. We do have Canadian writers. Don't get me wrong. I have a couple of them. And we have the very first Canadian ganjier, Matthew Jerome, is a writer here.
Right.
So,
and past guest. He's been sitting in the same chair as you.
I saw that. As a matter of fact, I think I saw him post that today.
He did.
See, I'm on it. Yeah. So I by the way, I love Matthew. He's one of the coolest dudes. He just had a baby, beautiful baby boy, I believe. And he looks super happy. So really happy for him. Exactly. But anyway, after having those conversations and having people, really show me that I was filling a gap, and that gap is are the publications that we all loved growing up left the space. They're corporate mouthpieces. Let's just call them what they are. And I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just not me. So they told me I need to just keep doing what I'm doing. So I was like, okay, let's do this. So I turned it into a magazine. And from that point forward, because of the way that this thing has been built through LinkedIn, through posting, through connecting with people, through having conversations, through caring about people and what they're doing, and spreading the plant in a positive, uplifting, helpful fashion, it immediately was able to, gather people, bring people in. You connect to it. You see that people actually care that are here creating. And it's made a huge difference, or I think that's maybe difference isn't the right word. It's allowed us to do things that I never thought I could do in this space. And that is share voices and businesses from this, our small cannabis culture, right? The culture and community side of everything that we have when it comes to the plant. The actual connection to it, being able to share that in a way I never thought possible, and do it with a very large audience. I mean, we had 2.5 million views on our content last year, and we haven't even been around a full year. Oh wow! May 6th nice. was when we posted our first, or dropped our very first edition. So it told me that I was, 1, doing the right thing, and 2, doing it the right way, which is just having authentic voices here, speak on cannabis, talk about, not only scientific and educational things, but very personal things. And even though we're sharing educational things and we're teaching people and we're sharing scientific things, it's done so in a personal way. Because all three of us love the plant, right? All three of us consume, all three of us talk about it all day. We're around it a lot, all of that kind of stuff. But guess what? There are a ton of people that are not that way. And not only can we, because we sort of come from a place of speaking of firsthand experience with the plant, we come, our parents, our grandparents, some of our grandparents owned farms. Some of our parents grew. We've had that connection for a very long time. We've grown. We've been, selling or distributing or putting ourselves through school. All of that stuff. We have that connection first and foremost. But because we're able to share cannabis in that positive, uplifting light through authentic stories, educating people and sharing scientific stuff, the way we do it through personal stories on top of it is what really connects everything.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
How we describe this magazine is we are a global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. And we do that a few different ways. One is that personal touch on everything we release here. It has to touch us personal, which means it'll touch you as well. That's how you connect. That's how we win with cannabis. And we can speak about, us three can speak about cannabis until we're blue in the face. And people outside of the culture or the industry or our community will glaze over. So if you don't give them a personal perspective, like my 2-year-old takes a broad spectrum at night to control their seizures, or my 89-year-old grandmother sits in her rocking chair at night and smokes a fat ass joint to control her or help with her rheumatoid arthritis. If you don't share those types of stories along with the science and educational stuff, you lose. So we absolutely share that kind of stuff. And that's how we connect with, anyone and everyone that is not only curious about cannabis, but people that are in this culture that have been here for a long time. We talk about growers constantly here. Home grow, right? That's what we do. Yeah. We highlight individual growers all the time here. Some of them are growers that don't actually operate within the legal side of the industry. So, we're connected to a lot of things, and that is from culture to the curious folks. And I think being a bridge that can do that in a way that's both visually stimulating through art, whatever kind of art that may be, and authentic stories and journalism, that's how you truly win as a publication in this space. It's not by being, pay to play. It's not by being the mouthpiece of corporate cannabis, which we all know is, pretty much fake. It's not by creating these, top 10 lists of whatever in cannabis. That's not how you do things. You come from a culture and curiosity and a commitment, a bunch of C's, commitment, the culture side of things, understanding what it means to actually be connected to this plant, to have people in your family that you've lost because they didn't have access to this plant. For instance, I lost my dad back in 2015. There's another reason the magazine itself exists. I lost my dad back in 2015. He's a veteran, and the VA was shoving Percocet down his throat for 20 plus years. He broke his neck. They were shoving Percocets down his throat. He did not have access to high quality medical cannabis in Missouri at the time. It's now legal in Missouri. It's legal now, right? Yeah. But back then it was not. And I just say back then, I lost him, in 2015. So it wasn't that long ago. No. So again, I believe my dad would probably still be alive today if he had access to cannabis and not a bunch of fucking pills. And I've seen family members from when I was a child who came back home from war with PTSD treat themselves with cannabis as well. So if you don't understand the connection that way, when it comes to cannabis, whether it's a medical connection or you grew up around it or something that is grassroots, as you pointed out, Al, that the magazine itself is very grassroots. Even though we're grassroots, and that sounds small, and we're relatively small, I like to feel as though we have a big voice because we do have a large culture, right? We do have a large community, and sharing that every other month as much as I can. And even in between those months, we're a media company. We push out articles almost daily here. And there are all our own articles here. They're not evergreen from other places. We're not pulling from other locations. So even though we're small, and even though we're grassroots, and even though we're culturally connected, we're still a big voice within the industry, we believe. At least we're building that because the industry itself has the community and culture that is large. And we want to be able to uplift that as much as possible here. God, I don't know how I got into that whole conversation.
It's perfect. No problem whatsoever. And I got, back at the beginning of when you started there, you were talking about of being a voice for the community and patients, and the fact that having to share patient stories is so important. And that voice and the patient stories is 100% what we've stood here of the Pace Radio Network and the Pace Radio Show, and sharing patient stories as before our broadcast tonight from for an hour before our broadcast tonight for this show, we ran a video that I created out of a past interview with a patient, and that's Haley Rose. And as you heard us talking before we brought you on, she was sent home at the age of 15 to die, and here she is 15 years later. And Tamara can tell you that you heard her talking tonight, her talking her head off in that broadcast, but that wasn't always the case, was it, Tamara?
No, even when we had our show from last week, she was having difficulty. She wasn't as chatty as she was on our show. Because I had them on my very first broadcast back, and she was not as and thinner and not as energetic.
No, okay, yeah.
That video you got of her is perfect because
good. Okay, we still got 7 minutes before we go to break. You mentioned your writers, the writers and stuff for the magazine, obviously passionate writers, and that. If there's somebody like those would be, I don't know whether you call them staff, right, to an article every issue, or do you also take in articles that are contributed by somebody who's not on that list?
Yeah, that's another great question. So we sort of have staff writers. We have a group of writers that we tend to go to that we trust on a regular basis. You probably know some of them. One of them is Mike Robinson. He has a very loud medical cannabis voice in this industry. But we also have contributors that, kind of swing through, right? And I think having that, not just using staff writers, I think is really important in this industry, because there are so many talented creators, writers in the industry that don't get a chance to have their voices heard, who don't get the bylines that they probably deserve. And I think that having a place for them to share their passion and their love and not be controlled. And like I said earlier, that global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world, we actually mean that. So we have writers all over the world. And I have a writer in Kenya, Ireland, Scotland, Spain. We had 2 writers over in Spain cover Spanibus. I think we have a writer in India, Bermuda, if not from Bermuda, obviously Canada, here in the US, and the list goes on. And they're not just based here in North America from those places. they're actually located in some of those cities. For instance, Candyman, which is a comic that we have, which I absolutely love, and I think everyone should be supporting Candyman. He is in Scotland. He's a creator out of Scotland. So we actually get a full global perspective here, but it really comes from the freedom that we allow writers to have, or we just not allow them freedom. We just say, be yourself, just do you. What do you want to write about? I don't have to come to you and say, we really want to know what's going on with lab testing. We have people coming to us saying, look, I want to share something with you about lab testing. And I'm like, let's talk. Let's do that. You know what I mean? Exactly. So there are people in this space who are so good at writing that don't get a chance to be heard. And they have written pieces for years. And they come here and they are overwhelmed that they are able to produce content for a publication that has the voice that it has. And I think it's extremely important to get as many of different types of voices as possible. Otherwise, you don't get the full view of the industry, of our culture and our community. You're leaving people out. So we bring them in new and fresh as much as possible. We encourage everyone to be themselves and really just write about the things that they love and that they love and that they're passionate about. That's a big difference that we have here, where in a lot of publications, you get a couple of people that say, we would love to know this. We want to hear a bit of this. Let's get this written. You try this, those types of things. And you get assignments handed to you. Here, it's let's see what we can all do together. And we'll do some of our, and we also have staff writing on top of that. So it's a combination of both.
Good. Because that's, the freedom for people to be able to write. That's how I was with Treating Yourself. And I'm sure Tamara is with the Three High Chicks is, the freedom to be able to write what you see or what you know and not have it, down.
Yeah, no. 100%. And that's how you get authentic content that's actually able to connect with readers. When you have people that are writing about things that they know about, that they're passionate about, they're going to give you their best. It's that simple. And
yes, exactly.
Especially when you're giving them a byline, you're giving them an audience. They don't want to be embarrassed. They want to put out their best work. Right.
And the one thing I think would point to people who are very passionate about the cannabis that are writing for you is that is right one of the things at the very top of when I started reading about your magazine, you say on there, this is not paid media.
Nope.
So obviously the people who write for you are writing to you out of passion for the of the planet.
100%. And I tell people this. I've never made a dime off of this publication ever. I've never made a single penny, even though we create some beautiful stuff and we spend hours and hours and hours on this every single day. And I'm on it full time, 12 hours plus a day. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what country I'm traveling in and out of. I'm still working constantly, and I have yet to pull in a single dime for myself. We have a small staff making very small amounts of money to do a large amount of work. And I am doing my best to work on the business itself and really build our agency, if not better than agency capabilities here when it comes to being able to advertise and market within the industry itself. So that's a big thing that I'm doing right now within the magazine, is really focusing my efforts on building the business side while still being the designer, the daily creator. But it's really on the business side for me, so I can make sure that eventually I do get a paycheck. Eventually.
Well, like you mentioned at the very beginning, shipping, the weight is very expensive. I could just imagine what cost of printing is now, never mind getting it to people.
It's not cheap. Let me tell you that. It's not cheap. I spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to print this thing, and it's definitely not cheap. But, you know, look, if you're putting out good work, and if you can pull in the eyeballs that are necessary, and if you can prove some ROI to your advertisers, and you continuously push, and you are building great relationships, and you are putting out the best work you can. No one is perfect, but you're putting out the best work you can. You will pull the advertisers that you need and that you want and that need you and that build partnerships. And you have, you know, that rising tide lifts all. Those types of things will help really build this magazine. And that's what we've done. And that's the community has been behind this magazine. And that's the only way this thing is going to ever succeed, is really having the cannabis community itself understand its importance, help uplift it while we uplift you. And that's, you know, really true partnerships. That's how things work. That's how things should work anyway.
Should. That's right. Exactly. All right.
That's the difference, by the way. That's the difference. That paid media thing versus an actual partnership, actual people who care, you know, people who do real journalism, real art, real photography, also AI shit, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's your differences. We have a bunch of them.
Yeah. You know, I know for myself, I was a person who didn't have any experience writing, and I just wrote about what I saw and the passion in writing and learned it as I went. And it works. Yep. So
that's the best teacher, right? The experience, the best teacher.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is. All right. We're going to head to break, pay some bills. When we return, Tamara and I will continue our discussion with our guest, Dustin Hoxworth of Fat Nugs Magazine. You're watching or maybe listening to the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBGTV broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Are you watching television on Roku, Fire, maybe an Apple TV or even Chromecast? If you are, then download the Boxcast app and search for CBGTV.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection. We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Tonight on the program, Tamara and I are joined by our guest, Dustin Hoxworth of the Fat Nugs Magazine. We've been having quite the conversation. I've really enjoyed it tonight. But I do have some questions I want to get to before we lose you.
You got it. Although I do want some of that. I want some of that ready root beer. I want ready root beer. Yes.
I don't know if we get that shipped across the line.
I don't think we can, but I still want some.
Well, that means you're going to have to come up and you have visit out.
I would love to.
That facility, Legacy 420, that company, all native owned on the reserve. It's over a 10,000 square foot building, and they need more room. It has the lab, like a real lab, Health Canada required type chromatography testing equipment. It's got lab techs. They produce their products there. 95% of the products are produced in-house.
I love it.
They distribute to other reserves across the country. It's really a big place. I'll tell you, somebody you might want to talk to someday, and I can connect you to that. That's not a problem.
Fair enough. I definitely appreciate that. And by the way, I actually grew up with an Indigenous stepfather for 9 years, who was also a consumer. And let's just say I saw a plant or two around the house. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, man. Ask away. What were you going to ask?
Okay. I seen. I don't know if it's how much information you can release on this, but I saw on the website there you have something that's not available yet, but it's called FNM Real Talk.
Yeah, so that was a show that I was developing when I first started Fat Nugs Magazine, where I have friends in this industry who call me or refer to me as the Switzerland of cannabis, where even though I'm very much ingrained on the culture side of things, because I understand and have family members who have run businesses and understand corporate culture, because I was in corporate America for 14 years. I'm sort of understand both sides, and it makes it so that, that bridge that I talk about from being, cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. I mean that. I sort of sit in the middle of where corporate America is and where I've always loved being, which is our culture side of cannabis and around the plant. So Real Talk was something that I was developing, bringing people together that don't necessarily see eye to eye when it comes to the way that things are being done in the space, or whatever the case may be, whatever the conversation, the hard conversation could be. And that's where Real Talk came from. I ended up setting up one, and then I wasn't able to do any more because of really the lack of resources at this point. So it's sort of morphed. It will probably come back around, but it'll probably be turned into something else. I'll probably rename it. But eventually it will be the place that you'll find where I'll do some interviews, some in-person interviews for the magazine, where we'll create some content from maybe shows that we're a part of, or whatever the case may be. I think a lot of our video content will live there on the website. And then, of course, we're actually going to upgrade our website here soon as well, and move over to a new platform and all that good stuff, and be able to do some new stuff, because our little Squarespace website is not, don't get me wrong, it's doing very well, but we need to step up to a little more big boy space at this point, or big girl space at this point. Growing, absolutely growing all over the place. That's all this thing does. That's all it does. Every day since I started it, there was a time when I first turned it into a magazine where I was kind of pulling it along. I was like, all right, come on, let's go. Come on, I want this thing to go, right? it's now at a place where I am like, oh my God, someone help, slow down, please. Because I'm wearing a ton of hats and I'm learning as I go, and it's one growing pain after the next on a daily basis. But the knowledge that I'm gaining from that is more than any other job I've ever had in my life. Doing this for the past year has really, I've never gotten my hands dirtier. Let's just say that.
It sounds very rewarding for you.
It is extremely rewarding. I'm very lucky to wake up and do what I get to do every day, even though I don't have a single dime to I don't have a pot to piss in, so to speak, right?
That's how you know you're a real, cannabis advocate. You're broke as a joke, and you're fucking still plugging away, and nobody's paying it, but you're still doing it anyway.
Yep, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I found when I was involved with the magazine stuff that I've done in the past, that recipes were something that was very important. People were always looking for them. TY had them. I put them in the Grassroots magazine. I did. And here we go. Say I'm going to move you, and I get you to
all right.
Bring that back up again. There you go.
So this is Barbara Dean. She is Canadian.
The stem parts.
Yeah, and here is her recipe itself, her recipe page, and the directions are on the next page. Let me see if I can get that right. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That page. So anyway, cranberry coconut granola, and of course it's infused.
Of course.
So every edition we've had, I think maybe minus one, we tend to do recipes, and I love recipes, and I will try them. There's something to be said for someone that can not only cook, but can cook with cannabis and make it taste good and make it smell good and make you feel good. There's an art and a science to that not many people can master that I've been around. And people tell me all the time, oh, I can make brownies and I can make cookies and I can make edibles and I've made some sauces. I'll tell you what, one of the best meals I've eaten in the last few years, I went to Vegas in last year. I guess this was Vegas last year, and had a meal, or I was invited to the Canigma, the Canigma party with Jordan Wagman, who I mentioned earlier, who is a Canadian chef, James Beard nominated chef.
Mm-hmm.
That man made some of the best food I've eaten in a long time, and it was infused. And they had mocktails, like a bartender just making mocktails, no alcohol, that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, an experience like that is how you normalize the plant more than anything else. Mm-hmm. Look, I can sit here and smoke a joint on camera, and it's cool and normal for me to do that, and you guys are cool and normal with it, and it's normal to people that are in the industry and around the plant, right? Mm-hmm. But to truly normalize things and to not, freak people out like, oh my God, he's smoking a joint on camera. Instead, you bring them an infused cocktail, right? An infused mocktail, or an infused ketchup that you dip your French fries in, or something along those lines. That is the best way that I see to normalize cannabis going forward.
Well, because not everybody smokes, and not everybody wants to smoke. And if somebody's, especially if somebody's 75 years of age, like, why should they take up smoking of cannabis in order to make themselves feel better because they're dealing with arthritis, such as
And if you don't have to smoke it, why? If you didn't grow up smoking it, and this, I swear, I love smoking a joint more than anything else. So I have a joint a lot throughout the day. But I don't necessarily encourage people to do what I do. So except for make sure you feed your ECS. How you feed it, I don't give a shit. Just feed it, right? You don't have to smoke.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, and that's a great kind of segue into something else. So if you haven't heard of quick drops or quick liquids, these quick drops are made by a company called Quick Liquids. This stuff is fast acting, water soluble. This is the only company that I know of that is making full spectrum water soluble cannabinoids to put into anything, to infuse anything, beer, water, Sprite, Coke, I don't care. And that's another way. This kind of stuff, instead of smoking, like we were talking about, those types of modalities where, oh, and by the way, let me show you this. 1 drop is 1 milligram of THC. You can control the drop with this kind of stuff.
So you can control dosing.
Control the dosage. Absolutely. This type of stuff where your grandmother is in hospice or in a home or whatever, and she can't smoke and she's, whatever. Walk in and give her this. Seriously. Get people their cannabinoids how we got to get them. If they don't want to smoke or can't smoke, great. Yeah. There are several different modalities that people can get their cannabinoids, period.
Can we get those in
exactly.
I don't think you have quick. You know what? I know that there is a Canadian partner. I can answer that. Al, you and I can have that conversation and we can follow up after this, Tamara, as well. I can get that information for you.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know if there's some availability. Because that's great for people to be able to dose themselves, right?
These things were made, medical in mind. It's a patented technology that is made for medical applications. But it's one of the greatest things. So when you're out and about these days, everyone goes and you're trying to be social. Everyone goes to a bar. Everyone goes to a restaurant and has a drink. These days, you don't have to do that. You don't have to get alcohol, right? You can get a Coke, and then if you want to dose yourself, infuse your drink, and because everyone else is drinking, you want to be social or whatever. That kind of stuff, like this stuff, replaces poison. It replaces alcohol. And even though I enjoy a good beer and I enjoy a good bourbon, I am from the South. I understand that alcohol is not good for me at all. No matter what anybody tells you or what the alcohol industry pretends, right? It's bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. Cannabinoids, you actually have an ECS. You can feed it cannabinoid medicine. So, it's good to carry this stuff around. I travel with it. That way I don't carry flour when I'm traveling. Obviously, you were not supposed to do that. That doesn't mean I don't carry flour, but you're right. I don't carry flour when I travel. Having this makes it so I get the medicine I need when I need it. I have anxiety. I have depression. I have been diagnosed with depression before. I'm also, I played volleyball in college. So I've always been super athletic, or I played a bunch of sports. Let's just say that. I have degenerative diseases in both of my shoulders. So I have reasons to be on pain meds, honestly, but I don't eat pills. I have my cannabinoids, and I take a high quality CBD, CBG, and CBN from a company that is based in California. Element Apothic is the company. I believe they've been trying to get into Canada over the past year, but they have, really broad spectrum products that aren't just CBD, right? You get multiple cannabinoids. So that stuff is true medicine. And having things like this that you can control dosage is true medicine. People need to have access to this kind of stuff. It's super important.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, not everybody wants to smoke a joint, and not everybody can grow their own cannabis. not everybody can make their own product.
No.
Agree.
Right?
That doesn't mean we should not let people do those things. But
Correct.
you know,
Exactly.
You know what? I always wondered about that too. So, and I don't like to do the comparing to alcohol, but I can brew my own beer. I don't brew my own beer. I go to a bar, right? I go to the store. So when I can grow my own cannabis, and I can't do it in this state right now. That doesn't mean that I'm going to grow enough plants to supply myself all the time, or that I won't lose a crop, or, whatever the case may be. I'm still going to buy cannabis from somewhere else.
Yep.
So that argument that home grow argument or the argument that home grow, interrupts, legal grows or whatever, or business is such BS. I don't know where I came up with that.
We could never actually
I lived in
supply ourselves, like in certain stages, like
yeah,
that amount unless you're patient with paperwork. Right?
Yep. That's why we have caregivers.
Yeah. Like I lived in a town that opted out of cannabis retail stores, but yet you could still grow your own cannabis. You could order it online, have it delivered to your house. You could go to the town next to you and buy the cannabis. So what were they really achieving by stopping people from not growing their own cannabis, which, by the way, has been changed?
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad it's been changed.
So,
now, well, it's that thing where people are scared of what cannabis will bring into their community, right? If we have stores, we're going to have the wrong type of people come around our neighborhoods and stuff. Guess what?
Yeah.
Your neighborhood that is smoking. Hello, your neighbors smoke. It's your neighbors. It's not the people that are going to come into your community. It's your community.
It's your neighbors.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
I want you to know that they know that you know that they know.
Bingo.
Jesus. Exactly. All right. What do we got?
Like I said, you're in Georgia, we're in Canada. Just the difference too, like in the difference in legislation and laws, countries. It's super interesting to hear all this.
Yeah, and it's always been interesting to me to hear about Canada and how it's legal, but how much it's been botched, and they have to, over and over again, redo things over and over again, and the whole way that things are having to be redone and rewritten, and the time in between, and it's so much BS on not just the Canadian side. I mean, all of our states that are just patchworks of nonsense. It's just stupid. Everybody just get out of the way. It's that simple. Get out of the way.
A lot of people were doing quite fine and were able to run as a business before legalization. Maybe they know what they're doing.
You think?
And like when we have a news show here that we do out on the network, and I'll tell you, like when we listen to or report the stuff that goes on down in the States and talking about how they're going to eliminate or remove not remove penalties, but remove criminal penalties or your records,
expungement.
Like we never get that up here in Canada. Then there was the fact that the money can go to community projects and help with the society and stuff like that. Our money went into slush funds. It went 75% into the provinces, and then it gets all divvied up. It didn't go to help people who were affected in the war of drugs, like it is that we're seeing reported on the States.
Well, yes and no, and don't get it twisted. That money is supposed to go to some good things. But I can tell you right now, in certain states, in certain municipalities, it's going to, let's just say, police forces that don't actually do much to help police and protect some of our retail locations and grows and stuff like that. So there are some problems that we have. Don't get me wrong. There are some states that are doing some good things, but we have plenty of stuff here in the U.S. where that money from the taxes that are coming in is not being spent the way that it's supposed to. You know, and here's we never really know where our tax money goes ever, because they don't provide us with a list like some countries get. Some countries actually get a list of where their money goes. We don't here. We have no fucking clue. No.
All right, you two. We're down to the final 5 minutes of the broadcast. And I could talk a lot more. Like, you know, some people say, what are we talking about for an hour and a half? Well, sometimes an hour and a half just isn't enough.
Especially when you have someone who runs his mouth. I'm so sorry, you guys.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's what we have guests.
Perfect. Absolutely no problem. We don't mind long answers whatsoever, because that allows the information to get out, and we may not know to ask a certain question to get that information out. So
fair enough.
No problem whatsoever. So shout out time. Person, place, thing, website, let everybody know where you can find your magazine, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so fatnugsmag.com, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can purchase individual magazines from the website. They're $15, free shipping here in the States. If anyone international or anyone outside the States wants to order, just get in touch with me, Dustin at fatnugsmag.com. That's my email. Or LinkedIn. You're always welcome to reach out to me there. Yeah, that's pretty much what we have. I think we have a lot of stuff coming up, and I think you'll continue to see us all over the place. Social media is a big one for us, and the website is growing and changing every single day. So that's where you can find us. And I think we have a big enough team. I think we have 8 to 10 people on the internal team now. If anybody at all ever wants to contact us, there's a lot of people that you can reach out to at the magazine now. We actually have a full team doing all kinds of stuff. And we have to. I can't do it all. There's no way. I would not be able to do this magazine without my team. They are amazing people. So there you go.
You've really grown from those early days of just posting a picture.
Oh, man.
Tamara.
That's how
Go ahead,
things go.
Tamara. Were you saying something there?
No, I said it's awesome.
Yeah, and that is how things go, Al. You're absolutely right. They went from me creating stuff on my phone, on my couch while I was stoned, to me going 12 hours plus a day, multiple podcasts a week. Now, 8, 9, 10 editions, 3 print editions, 13 dispensaries, 5 states, and growing. So we're getting there.
That's awesome.
Good getting there. Great. Good stuff. All right. Tamara, you want to say anything before we go?
No, thanks for coming on, and appreciate and learned a lot tonight about, especially about Georgia and the different kind of, distribution laws and stuff you have down there. And thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on to the podcast. Just a reminder, let everybody know that we'll be back next week with our special guests. You can find us on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, and you'll find us on at paceradio.net. Thanks to our sponsors, Legacy420.com and the Camelford Lifestyle Shop. Big thank you to our guest, Dustin Hoxworth of Fat Nugs Magazine, for coming on the broadcast. It's always interesting to find new place to read, new information, and a new way of doing things. Appreciate that. Thanks, Tamara, and thanks to everybody else for tuning in to the program. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you all soon, and see you later. Bye-bye.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.